My wife has been having an affair with her boss for about 6 years now. He's the owner of a real estate company where she works. We've got 3 kids, a 16-year-old girl, a 12-year-old boy, and our youngest, a gorgeous 2-year-old girl. I love all of them, except for my wife. Oh, and in case I didn't mention it, I'm a police sergeant. About 2 months ago, my little one had a fall at daycare, and of course, my wife was unreachable to pick her up. So, I rushed into action. I jumped into my car, lights flashing, and sped to the daycare to help her. When I got there, she was sucking on a lollipop and sniffing, looking like she'd been through the ringer. I went over to her, checked her out, kissed her forehead, and ruffled her hair. The older kids usually don't let me do that, but she loves it when I do. I left her giggling and went to talk to the principal. She told me my daughter had fallen and hurt her leg pretty badly. They'd already called an ambulance, and it should be arriving soon. I went back to my daughter, sat down next to her, and before long, she was laughing again. The emergency doctor showed up and said she needed stitches. So, I rode along with the ambulance to the hospital. I tried calling my wife, but it went straight to voicemail. I left her a message and then fired up the locator app. Lenny's always losing her phone. It's got a brain, but not much of one when it comes to my wife. The app showed her at the Holiday Inn, just 7 miles away from me. I sat with my daughter while they stitched her up. When they were done, I signed some paperwork and went to the trunk of my car to grab a foldable child seat. I set it up in the back seat, strapped her in, and then we headed out to find her mother. I could feel the lunch I had eaten start to churn in my stomach. I pulled into the Holiday Inn parking lot and parked just in time to see Caroline and Matthew, her boss, come out of the lobby. They were arm in arm, his hand resting on her ass. They were laughing and smiling like it was just another casual day, and then she kissed him. It wasn't just a kiss. It was like she was kissing me. It was exactly that kind of kiss. I parked the Ford, zoomed in with the camera, and watched as they walked to her car. She turned to him, then licked his neck. His hand slid. Yeah, it slid. Under her skirt, and she lifted it enough for me to see the lace tops of her stockings. I'd begged her to wear stockings once, but never in public. Then she slid her hand under her dress, pulled out the sky blue lace panties I'd given her for our anniversary, smiled, sniffed them, and handed them to him. I could feel everything crashing down around me. This was it. It was over. They laughed and kissed one more time, and then she got into her car and drove off. Then, out of nowhere, I saw her car slam on the brakes and swerve to a stop. My phone rang right after that, and I glanced at the caller ID. It was her. Hello, Caroline. I answered, keeping my voice steady. What's happening? Where are you? She asked. I'm at the hospital. The baby's fine. Where are you? She said. I couldn't reach you. I'm in the office. On my way to the hospital now, I told her. Drive safe, she said before hanging up. I watched her car move forward. Then it almost collided with a pickup truck as she swerved, screaming and running out into the street. I just sighed and headed back home. I grabbed my phone, called a friend, and told him I needed to talk. I got to the house, carried the sleeping Hannah inside, and then went back to the car to grab a few DNA swab kits. I went inside and swabbed my daughter's mouth with a cotton swab, placed it in the container, sealed it, and labeled the plastic bag. I made myself a cold tea with ice, then called into work. I spoke to my boss, the head of the detective department, and told him I needed the rest of the week off to take care of some family matters. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, just need to see a doctor about my kids, I replied. All right, keep me updated, he said. About 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. When I saw her standing there, I felt physically sick. But I took a deep breath, counted to 10, only made it to 7, and then she knocked. Where is she? She screamed as soon as I opened the door. She's sleeping, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She pushed past me and stormed into the baby's room. I started jotting down things I needed to do for the next day: divorce lawyer, DNA test, stop by the electronics store. As I was making my list, she came storming out of the bedroom, rushing toward me. What happened? She demanded, panic in her voice. She fell. I replied, trying to stay calm. But she's fine. Took it like a champ. Only 4 stitches, and the doctor said there'll hardly be any scarring. Caroline's face twisted with frustration. Why didn't they call me? She shouted. They tried, I said, my voice steady. They couldn't reach you, though. I tried too. Left you a message, but it went straight to voicemail. So where were you? She started stammering, avoiding eye contact. I was at a meeting, she mumbled, clearly uncomfortable. I'd recommend you put your phone on vibrate next time instead of turning it off, I said. I'm just relieved nothing serious happened with the kids, or with me. Her face drained of color, and I could see a hint of guilt flicker in her eyes. She looked shaken. I never thought about that, she said quietly. Of course you didn't, dear. I thought to myself, keeping it to myself. Just then, our two older kids, Lillian and Lucas, came rushing in from school. Lillian, 16, and Lucas, 12, stopped in the living room and eyed us both warily. What happened, Dad? Lucas asked, his voice full of concern. My daughter shot Caroline a cold, calculating look before turning to me. Is everything okay, Dad? She asked, her voice softer than her brother's. Yeah, I said, watching my wife closely. Your sister had a little fall at daycare, got a cut. Had to go to the ER for stitches. I went with her. Caroline flinched at the mention of the hospital, and Lillian, suspicious as always, asked, Where were you? I was at a meeting, Caroline mumbled again, avoiding my gaze. Lucas gave her a long, piercing stare, clearly sensing something was off. Really, Mom? He said, eyebrows raised. Caroline hesitated, then blushed deeply, clearly uncomfortable with her son's sharp tone. I need to take a shower, she muttered, trying to escape. Didn't you already take one this morning? I asked innocently. She stumbled for a moment, then glared at me, clearly hoping I'd snap. Deal with it, Craig, she hissed, then stormed upstairs. I turned to my kids, surprised by the looks on their faces. They both seemed devastated, eyes full of concern. It's okay, guys, I said, trying to calm them. Just a little disagreement between your mom and me. Lillian gave me a doubtful look. Whatever you say, Dad, she muttered, still unsure. Lucas just nodded, not saying anything. How about some pizza? I asked, trying to shift the mood. I called up for delivery and ordered 2 large pizzas, one with pepperoni, the other with mushrooms. About 30 minutes later, they arrived, and the kids dove in, even little Hannah. We waited for Caroline, but when she came down, she wrinkled her nose. You know I only like anchovies, she growled, looking disgusted. So sue me. I shot back, trying to keep my voice light. She gave me a hard look before heading to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of wine. The kids chuckled, exchanging glances, but they still shot disapproving looks at her. Caroline hurried off somewhere, and the kids and I settled into a conversation about school, community events, and dates, anything to fill the silence. That night, things were cold between us. I ended up grabbing an extra blanket, but it didn't help much. It had been about 3 months since we'd shared anything resembling closeness. I knew it was going to be even harder moving forward. The next day, I met with a lawyer to go over my options. She didn't have much patience for cheaters, especially women, and she had a soft spot for cops like me. But she was clear. As much as she hated to admit it, we weren't at fault here. Still, she warned that they'd crucify me if my wife didn't agree to everything I wanted. She told me to gather all the evidence I could, and we'd see what we could do. When we discussed alimony, she said I was in decent shape because my wife made more money than I did. And since my older daughter was of age, she could choose who she wanted to live with. I contacted a friend and asked him to help me set up surveillance on Caroline and her boss. He was a good guy, someone I'd worked with before, and it wouldn't cost me too much. He'd get me everything I needed. Afterward, I headed to an electronics store and bought a few wireless voice recorders and 3 video cameras. I went home and set up the cameras in the master bedroom, living room, and guest room. I also placed a recorder in her car, one on the bookshelf in the living room, and another in the bedroom. Just as I finished, I got a message from Caroline saying she'd be home late, and I needed to watch the kids. I got ready, picked up Hannah, and went home to start making dinner. A couple of hours later, my 2 older kids came home, and we talked about dinner. Grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, and creamed spinach. How does that sound? I asked, trying to keep the mood light. Lillian said it sounded good. The youngest one, though, gave me a small smirk, then asked, What does Mom want? I told her, Your mom can cook her own dinner. Lillian and the youngest exchanged a quick glance, and then Lillian said, Dad, we need to talk. I could tell this wasn't going to be easy, but I followed her to the kitchen where we started preparing dinner. Dad, I think Mom's cheating, she began, her voice serious. She doesn't respect you, and she's never around when we need her. Lucas nodded, adding, Lillian's right, Dad. I was relieved that both of them had their wits about them, wherever they got them from. I stopped what I was doing and pulled them both into a tight hug. Hannah, our youngest, immediately joined us, shouting, "Me too! Me too!" I looked at my kids and told them, "I love you more than I love myself." I said that to them all the time, and while they used to think it was cheesy, they liked hearing it. "Things don't look good right now," I said, my tone more serious now. "But I'm keeping an eye on your mom, and I promise you, I'll always love you. You're my kids, and we'll get through this." The youngest piped up with, "I think you should get cheek swabs for us, Dad. It might help your case." "I'll never stop loving you," I reassured them. "But it'd be nice to know exactly how rotten she is." Lucas agreed. "Yeah, Dad. I want to know too. Right now, I'm not feeling much love for her." I was taken aback, but I felt bad for them. I nodded. "All right, let's get this done before she gets home." I grabbed the swabs, first mine, then theirs, and sealed them up in plastic bags. I tucked them into my briefcase, making sure everything was set. The next day, I took the samples to an independent lab and paid extra for an expedited DNA express analysis. It cost a bit more, but I wanted the results as quickly as possible. 2 weeks later, the results came back. None of the kids were mine. I was reeling from it, but I had to keep moving forward. Every year, her company threw a 4th of July party at the owner's house, and I really didn't want to go, but I was told I had to. She was one of the top salespeople in the company, so she had to be there. By then, I had everything I needed: tapes, photos, audio recordings, videos, receipts, and the DNA test results. I just couldn't figure out the best way or time to confront her. I realized it didn't matter when or how I did it. I was going to lose, no matter what. So, I went. She told me it wasn't a family event, so the kids weren't invited. Looking back, I guess that was a blessing in disguise. We arrived just after 11 in the morning. I grabbed a beer for myself and a glass of white wine for her. She was wearing a yellow sundress, no bra, 7-centimeter espadrilles, and a shawl. She looked good. I stayed fairly close to her, not exactly watching her, but keeping an eye out, just in case. Her friend found her and started talking to her. He whispered something in her ear before he went off to mingle. As soon as he was out of sight, I turned my attention back to Caroline. She kept scanning the crowd, and after the 3rd glass of wine, she lost track of where I was. She doesn't handle alcohol well, and I could see she was on the verge of getting drunk. I kept watching as she grabbed another glass of wine and made her way toward the back of the property. A couple of her work friends tried to distract me, but I switched to Coke after I'd finished my beer. They were a little tipsy, but I managed to keep my eyes on her as she headed toward the corner of the garden shed and disappeared behind it. I put my coat on the table, pulled out my cell phone, and turned on the video camera. I moved toward the shed, sneaked around the corner, then left the area and made my way to the gate at the back of the building. I peeked around the corner and saw Caroline standing there. Her sundress was hiked up to her waist, and her breasts were exposed to the sun and the breeze. He was with her, and she was moaning, making all sorts of sounds. Her white lace panties were lying discarded on the ground, and in that moment, a light bulb went off in my head. I silently thanked my luck for this unexpected stroke of fortune. I turned off the camera and took a few photos. I waited until they finished, then reached for him. I grabbed him by the waist and pulled him off my wife. I spun him around and, without thinking, punched him square in the face with my right hand. His nose shattered, and I heard the crack of his cheekbone. I managed to hurt my hand in the process too, but I didn't care. He slumped to the ground, unconscious, and Stella collapsed against the shed wall, sprawling out beside him. I pulled out my handcuffs and cuffed him to the fence post while reading him his rights. "You are under arrest for rape. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. If you waive your right to remain silent, you still have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you. Do you understand these rights as I have explained them to you?" Stella started screaming, her voice frantic. "Craig, what are you doing?" I didn't even look at her, my focus on the man as I continued. "You have the right to an attorney." Stella was already losing it, struggling to get up. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Detective Craig Johnson, badge number 714. I'm at Larson Street with a suspect in custody for rape. I need backup and a supervisor on site immediately and an ambulance. Private residence, party in progress. Stella was furious, her voice sharp with anger. "This isn't what you think. It's not rape, you idiot." I stood tall and calm, meeting her eyes. "Here's how it's going to go, Stella. This is rape. I have video, audio, pictures, photographs, tapes, receipts, timelines, and the DNA test results showing that none of our children are mine. You're going to agree to this, or you'll never look at your kids again, you garbage." Her face drained of color. She collapsed back to the ground and screamed. "No." I lifted her up, wrapping her in her shawl. "Decide, Stella." She muttered something incoherent. "My panties." I raised an eyebrow. "You didn't need them 5 minutes ago. Why do you think you need them now? Leave them at the crime scene for the officers." I helped her to her feet as she sobbed, breathing heavily, sniffing. We made our way across the lawn to the backyard. As we approached, a group of about 10 people hanging around outside fell silent. They were more shocked than anything, stepping aside as I led her to an empty lounge chair and sat her down. 2 of her tipsy friends rushed over to her, shouting, "What happened? What did you do to her?" "I didn't do anything," I snapped, my anger boiling. "Your boss raped her." "What?" Donna screamed, incredulous. "You heard me," I replied coldly. "You didn't know?" Laura squealed, looking confused. "No, what?" I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "She said she had an open marriage," Laura blurted out, trying to justify it. "She said you were fine with it." "She lied," I said, cutting her off. Just then, the cops arrived, and I directed 2 officers to head to the garden shed. I instructed them to read Matthew his rights again because I wasn't sure he'd heard me the first time. A replacement sergeant showed up with another patrol officer. I gave instructions for the officer to take statements from Donna and Laura, gathering their addresses. Matthew's wife pushed her way through the crowd, demanding to know what was going on. The sergeant explained that her husband had been arrested for rape, and someone filled her in on the details. She exploded. "You crap." She lunged at Stella, who by now was nearly catatonic. The cops quickly intervened, and before long, paramedics arrived. I filled them in on what had happened, and they placed Stella on a stretcher. As they lifted her, she left a small puddle on the lounge chair. The evidence was clear as day. The paramedics wheeled her off, and I told them to take her to a trauma center and get her checked for rape. Moments later, 2 more officers brought Matthew in. His face was swollen, hands cuffed behind his back. Matthew made the mistake of saying they had an understanding and that the intimacy was consensual. His wife heard him and exploded again. "You son of a bitch," she yelled, but they quickly restrained her. "You'll hear from my lawyer," she spat, glaring at him. I followed them to the station, signing all the forms because, after all, she was still my wife. I filed a formal complaint against Matthew under oath. Since it was Saturday, he couldn't be arraigned until Monday. He tried calling his lawyer, but his wife had already beaten him to it. I returned to the reception area, and that's when I saw my soon-to-be ex-wife. She looked awful, like she'd had the worst day of her life. But when she saw me walk in, she tried to brighten up and forced a smile. Then she saw the look on my face, and her expression immediately changed to one of alarm. "So, Stella," I said, my voice colder than I intended, "how long has this been going on?" She trembled, tears welling up in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to last long," she whispered. "Just a little fling. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Bullshit, Stella," I spat, stepping toward her, stopping just inches from her face. "Hannah's not mine, Lucas is not mine, and Lillian's not mine. 17 years, Stella. 17 years we've been married. You can do the math yourself, you piece of crap. You're supposed to be one of the top sellers. Why, Stella? Why?" Her tears quickly turned into a smirk as she wiped her eyes. "Because I can," she said, her voice cold and indifferent. "You're supposed to be a detective. You figure it out. I can have as many lovers as I want, and you wouldn't have a clue." Something inside me just died. I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife, and it was like I was staring through her. The cold expression on my face seemed to hit her hard. It felt like I watched her age in front of me, shrinking into herself. "Oh God, what's wrong with me?" she whispered. I grabbed her hand and pulled her to her car. I sat her in the passenger seat, got in myself, and started driving to her parents' house. She stared out the window, her gaze distant, until we pulled up to their place and stopped. "What are we doing here?" she asked, her voice low. "I want to go home. People in hell want ice water," I muttered under my breath. I got out, pulled her from the car, and led her to the front door. I rang the bell, and when it opened, her father stood there. "David," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Your daughter needs to stay here for a while. I'll come back tomorrow to explain everything. She just got out of the ER. Please take care of her." He looked at me like I had 2 heads, but I turned and walked away without waiting for a response. I turned off my phone and headed home. When I got back, The kids were waiting for me, looking up at me expectantly. "Where's Mom?" "She's at your grandparents'," I said. "She'll be there for a while." I filled them in on what had happened, sparing them the graphic details. They listened, tearful and sniffing, but in the end, they said they understood why I did what I did, but they couldn't wrap their heads around why she did what she did. Welcome to the club, I thought to myself. I gathered up the reports, photos, tapes, surveillance documents, and receipts of everything I had on her. I prepared 4 separate packages, leaving the DNA test results out for now. I called the lawyer and pulled the divorce trigger. I requested a restraining order based on the police report tied to the rape case. I packed up the DNA results and sent them over to the lawyer. Then, I went to the jerk's house to speak with his wife, Riley. I apologized for the disturbance, and she offered her sympathy for the mess. I handed her the packet and told her to use whatever she needed. She seemed a little taken aback, but thanked me before I left. I didn't stop there, though. I swung by Stella's parents' house and handed one of the packages to her father. "Your daughter's messed up. You need to get her some help," I said before walking away. The next day, we went to church and then to Denny's for breakfast. I kept my phone off the entire day and night. On Monday morning, I showed up at work and got the details for the asshole's arraignment. I went to the courthouse and sat through the whole thing. His lawyer tried to play the consensual sex card, claiming there was no rape. They even brought in statements from 2 women from the company. The judge wasn't sure what to make of it all, but she dismissed the charges with prejudice, meaning he could face new charges if anything changed. He turned, saw me, and smirked. That didn't last long, though. Whoever his wife's advance man was had arranged for him to be served with divorce papers as he was leaving the courthouse, along with the restraining order. I smirked as I left, not feeling quite even yet, but getting there. I got home, holding copies of the rape report, the police report, and the DNA results from the rape scene. Guess who the biological father of my poor little daughter was? I was on the phone with my lawyer when I heard a knock on the door. Now, there's only one person I know who knocks instead of ringing the bell. Of course, I opened the door to find my current brother-in-law standing there. Anthony, Stella's older brother, was just a few years older than me. He ran his own construction company, and there were rumors he had some connections to the mafia. A few years ago, his son got into some serious trouble with drugs. I pulled a few strings, 99% legal, and got him into a program. We helped straighten him out, and now he's in his 3rd year at seminary, doing well. Needless to say, I was his favorite brother-in-law. So, yeah, this probably wasn't just a social call. Ben squeezed past me and was immediately greeted by my kids. They loved him, his wife Emily, and their 3 kids. He broke free from their hugs, turned to me, and said, "Back porch." We made our way to the back porch, and once we were out there, he looked at me and said, "What the hell is going on?" "Stella's feeling sick at Mom and Dad's furious." "Did she tell you anything?" "You kicked her out, and then she got all evasive, didn't want to talk anymore. It was right after Dad showed her the literature you gave him." "What's going on? Did you get a chance to look into any of the stuff Dad had?" "He wouldn't let me." I sighed deeply and ran my hands through my hair. "Your sister's been cheating on me for 17 years. None of my kids are biologically mine. She spread her charms everywhere. I don't even know who Lillian's or Lucas's father is. Hell, she probably doesn't either. Hannah's father is her current boss, Matthew Clark. And she's got a sexually transmitted disease, gonorrhea, and she's pregnant. Not by me. Your dad has everything I've got, except for the rape evidence and the police report, but my lawyer has all of that. She'll be served divorce papers this week." Ben slumped into a chair, looking despondent. "No chance," he asked, his voice low. "Of what? And would you have done it?" I shot back, exhausted. "No, I understand," I said, my voice softening. "They dropped the charges against the asshole. That's what I call him. His wife left him, and she's got everything your dad has on him, thanks to me. I didn't want to be harsh with your parents, Ben, but with the attitude your sister's got now, I didn't want them getting the wrong idea. She needs serious psychological help." "I understand," he said, still a little shocked. "Just a little overwhelming, that's all." "Tell me about it," I muttered. We talked a bit more before he stood up to leave. "So, what are you going to do about the shithead?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "Whatever I do, it's going to come back to bite me. I know what I want to do, but no offense, she's not worth me going to jail over." He looked me square in the eye, unwavering. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it. You're still family. It won't come back to haunt you. I won't harm my sister, but he's going to get what's coming to him. That'll balance the score, brother." Ben, Don't do this, I warned him. Do what? He asked, his tone challenging. He turned and left before I could say anything else. Thursday came, and my wife was served with divorce papers at her parents' house. She passed out from the shock and had to be taken to the emergency room. She stayed in the hospital for about a week before returning to her parents' place. Her father came to talk to me, looking for answers. Can't we fix this somehow? He asked, his voice full of hope. Have you seen what I gave you? I replied, my voice growing harder. Yes, but obviously she made a mistake, he said, trying to defend her. A mistake? I shouted, my frustration rising. Scratching a car is a mistake. Forgetting to pay a bill is a mistake. Sleeping with someone else for 17 years, getting pregnant by another man, passing him off as your husband's child, and stopping sex with your husband, those aren't mistakes, David. I'm just glad the kids were at day camp when I went off on their grandfather. I took a breath and calmed myself. Get her to sign the papers. I'm done with her. He wasn't happy with either of us. Tough shit. An interesting thing happened after that. Stella was notified about 3.5 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago, the asshole disappeared. He didn't show up for his meeting with his lawyer and his wife. Turns out, for tax purposes, she was the majority owner of Clark Realty, so she really didn't care and amended her divorce suit to show she was the one leaving him. The divorce process is still ongoing, but now it's going to take a year. Stella's 2 months pregnant, so we've got to wait another 7 months to finalize everything. So we waited. As the case dragged on, her lawyer tried pushing for changes to the settlement. She wanted more, claimed she was entitled to more. I proposed letting her keep the house and paying her a 10% settlement. She would also keep her retirement savings, which were still in our joint account. There would be no visitations except for 1 weekend every 2 months at her parents' place. No male or female companions present, not even Lillian. She didn't want to see her. Her lawyer opposed almost everything I suggested. I asked my lawyer to set up a meeting. I arrived at my lawyer's office half an hour early, popped a DVD into his projector, grabbed a cup of coffee, and settled into a chair. She walked in with her lawyer. My lawyer introduced himself, and Stella extended her hand to him. I know who you are. I don't need to meet you, she said, her voice cool. Her lawyer suggested we keep things civilized and shot a quick, pointed look at my best cop. He swallowed hard, clearly uncomfortable. The negotiations began, but after 4 hours, they had gone through everything without reaching an agreement. I rejected almost everything on the table and even pulled a few items off. That's when Stella exploded, accusing me of being unreasonable. I dropped a bombshell. Okay, you answer one question truthfully, and I'll reconsider, I said, pressing the play button on the DVD player. The disc kicked on, and the screen filled with footage from the dash cam of my police car, Stella and the jerk exiting the Holiday Inn. She'd never seen this footage, never suspected it existed. It kept rolling until she pulled out the blue-laced panties. I stopped the video and turned to face her. Her face turned ashen, and her jaw dropped. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, at the meeting, Stella, where are the anniversary panties? My loving wife, where the hell are they? If you don't sign this as it is, we're going to court, and everything will become public knowledge. Sign it, I insisted. She cried, grabbing the pen and signing everything. Her lawyer looked stunned, and as she grabbed her purse to leave, her water broke. She screamed, and we called an ambulance. I made sure my name wasn't listed as the father on the birth certificate. She gave birth to a boy weighing 3 kilograms. My lawyer filed for DNA testing, and surprise, he wasn't my child. What's more, he wasn't the jerk's child either. She had cheated on him too. The divorce went through, and I was finally free. I became quite popular on the singles market after that. My daughter told me I was considered a hunk. My son, however, warned me to be careful, saying, otherwise, you might get attacked. I went to visit my brother-in-law, and we shared a few beers. Finally, I asked him, do you know what happened to the jerk? Who's that? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Don't worry about it, I replied. I went on a few dates, but my heart just wasn't in it. Then, about 2 years later, Ben and Emily threw a party at a bar, and everyone was invited, including my ex-wife. The kids stayed away from her and the guy she brought along, but her little boy was charming. My daughters literally flocked to him. My now 18-year-old daughter brought a young man to the party. He seemed okay, but he was still being vetted. Actually, I liked him. Don't tell her that. The guy who came with her mother had his eyes on my daughter. I saw it happening, but I didn't want to embarrass her with any actions or words. He kept hovering over her, and I was about to intervene when her young man joined her. Hey, honey, what's going on? He asked, stepping between her and the other guy. Stay out of this, kid. The young lady and I are having a conversation, the jerk sneered, his hand moving toward her thigh. Oh, don't mind me, he said mockingly. I was just trying to keep her from causing you any pain. His hand slid to her thigh, then to her buttock. Get your hands off me, she said, glaring at him. Hey, you know you like it. Don't pretend, he taunted. She punched him in the throat and grabbed his right hand. His thumb snapped back with a sickening crack, and his scream caught everyone's attention. I don't have my mother's morals, scumbag, she hissed. That's my girl, I thought to myself. Her mother rushed over, squealing. What have you done? Ben, who had seen and heard everything, stepped in and said, I think both of you should leave. After they left, the party settled down and the atmosphere lightened. Then, a new arrival caught my attention. My sister-in-law rushed over and hugged a striking brunette, about 170 centimeters tall, with a petite chest and legs that went on for days. She had the cute face of a neighborhood girl, with brown eyes flecked with gold. She was stunning, at least I thought so. My son nudged me in the ribs. Keep your eyes in your head, old man, he grinned. What are you talking about? I asked, but before I could say anything more, my sister-in-law brought the lovely lady over to us and introduced her. Michael, this is my sister, Olivia Turner. Oh, damn, I thought. All the good ones are taken. She just moved here. She's got a 10-year-old son, she's a lawyer, and she wants to start over. Her husband was killed in Afghanistan, Emily explained, looking me in the eye. I told her all about you. Maybe you two can help each other. Angie looked at me and said, we can give it a try.